What is up, y'all? It's Lucas, aka Television Hub, and today we're talking about Better Call Saul and what could possibly happen after the events of Better Call. What is up, y'all? It's your boy Lucas, aka Television Hub, and today we're talking about my favorite topic, Better Call Saul. Now, you might be wondering how we're going to talk about new Better Call Saul stuff when there's no Better Call Saul going on. And the ending of Better Call Saul was pretty clear, but there are still some what-if scenarios about the end I would like to explore. Some of these scenarios can coexist, and they're mainly going to be about Kim and Jimmy, but I want to talk about Kim first, and then we'll get to Jimmy. The first scenario I want to start off with is that Kim cuts off all contact with Jimmy. This one is a rather grim one, and one that I don't personally believe in, but basically Kim cuts off all forms of communication with Jimmy and never goes to visit him again. She goes back to Florida and continues living her extremely ordinary life working for a sprinkler company, assuming that she is still employed there. Not to mention she'd still be with her boyfriend, otherwise known as the Yup guy. Then again, like most of us, Bob Odenkirk said in an interview that he thought Kim seemed pretty unhappy at the sprinkler place. So that does make you question if she would really stay in Florida or not. She clearly hates her job there, and it doesn't really seem like she likes her whole life there either. But if this is the correct scenario and Kim does cut off all forms of contact with Jimmy, what a great way for them to go out. It was just a fantastic way for them to leave each other's lives. You know, Saul giving her the finger guns and Kim looking back at him. Oh my god, it was so emotional. Now, the next scenario is that Kim moves to Albuquerque and goes back to practicing law. Now, this one is much more fun to believe than the last one, and it's probably my favorite Kim theory. We know that Kim's New Mexico bar certification never expired, which allowed her to go into the prison to visit Jimmy. I mean, she could have visited him before, but it's a lot more confidential when she says that she's his lawyer. But what this means is that if she really wanted to, she could get back into practicing law. She has the bar certification. Her volunteering at the legal advisory place shows she still has interest in the law. And as we saw through the entirety of Better Call Saul, the law is something that she is very passionate about. And Ray Seahorn believes all of this too. While speaking with the New York Post, she said that she believes Kim will make her way back to the law, but it wouldn't be an immediate thing. Just little by little and slowly make her way back there. This scenario kind of ties in with the next one and would probably coexist with it, being that Kim consistently visits Jimmy while he's in prison. If Kim wanted to constantly visit him as his lawyer so she can get the room with him, she'd probably have to go back to just doing pro bono work, which she loved doing, so I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem. Now, like I said earlier, she doesn't have to practice law to visit him. She could just go visit him like any other normal person would. But if she wants to share the room with just him, she would have to keep putting up this front of being his lawyer. The thought of her consistently visiting him as just a visitor doesn't necessarily mean she lives in Albuquerque either. She could just fly out to Florida maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And funny enough, that is something that Bob Odenkirk himself buys into. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Bob Odenkirk said, quote, "I think she comes to see him. I think she comes to see him once a year, every other year at the least." And Ray Seahorn said a similar thing, believing that Kim continues to see Jimmy every so often. And honestly, that constitutes as a happy ending in my book. They're still seeing each other. They're still talking. You love to see it. It's much less grim than scenario number 1. Now let's talk a little bit about Jimmy here. Now, since he is in prison, there's not that many different routes we can go with, but there are some very creative ones. Scenario number 1 is that Jimmy lives out the rest of his days in prison at the top. We know that he is going to be heavily respected in this prison. The prisoners absolutely loved him. He was a beacon of hope for them, and he represented even the most terrible of criminals and got their sentences reduced half the time. Hell, he's definitely gonna give out plenty of good legal advice to all the prisoners and maybe even help some of them appeal their sentence. I'd be willing to bet that in a way he's still doing his lawyer stuff while inside the prison. He's not gonna have any problem whatsoever surviving in prison. And to be honest, if Saul really wanted to get out of that prison, he could easily get some help and maybe even successfully break out. You know, he grabs Michael Schofield, maybe Lincoln Burrows, and throw T-Dog in there for extra measure. But this does bring me to the next situation, surprisingly, being that Kim helps break Jimmy out of jail. BlueComb78 on Reddit said that Kim is gonna help break Jimmy out and they're gonna go full Bonnie and Clyde mode. He even said that a perfect name for the film would be El Camino and Slippin' Jimmy, an obvious play on words with the El Camino movie with Jesse. The real question is, what would Jimmy and Kim do if they were both on the run together? Would they find their way to Mexico and live out the rest of their days as a couple with a hell of a story to tell? Would they live a life of crime, performing their scams and tricks on people at bars? Would they get caught very quickly and both go to prison. Now clearly Blue Comb wasn't serious, but damn, this could actually be something. All I'm saying is I would pay to see a movie about Kim breaking Jimmy out of jail. Now the facts are that the prison is pretty much escape proof, being a maximum security place, but still a very fun thought. Scenario number 3 is Saul makes millions in prison. Leatherhand on Reddit suggests that Saul could sell the stories he has about Walter White, Jesse, and just being a criminal lawyer in the first place. You know, Saul has some crazy stories that we didn't even see in Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad. And some movie production company out there would kill for stories like that to be turned into a movie. Or imagine he starts writing books about his experiences, because I do believe it is legal to write and publish books while in prison. Now, what is Saul gonna do with all the money he makes off of these books and movies while in prison? I don't know. It would just be a cool thing for him to do while he's in there. It's not like he has many other options when it comes to entertaining himself. But it would be so sick if they made this into a real movie. Basically a movie inside of a movie, if you know what I'm saying. Because it would exist in the Breaking Bad universe. It would be in the perspective of the people that live there. It would just be really funny to see. Kinda similar to the American Greed thing that they made on Better Call Saul. Or really any more documentaries from inside the Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad universe in general, I would like to see. Now, New York has a law called the Son of Sam law, which prevents criminals from profiting off of their stories and what they did. And from what I could find, there is 45 states that have a sort of Son of Sam law, and New Mexico is one of them. So most likely Saul Goodman would not be able to profit off of his books. I mean, he could always appeal it, but I doubt that's gonna work. But hey, that doesn't mean he can't write them. Scenario number 4 is that Jeff gets sentenced to the same prison as Jimmy. Now this one is a bit unlikely because Saul is in a maximum security prison, and I'm not sure if Jeff has done anything bad enough to be put in one of those, but it would be so interesting to see Jeff and Saul in the same prison together. And the YFC on Reddit suggested that they would end up in the same prison, and Jeff tells Saul about his escape plan and he gets people in on it. But plot twist, Saul informs the guards and the prison staff about Jeff's plan to escape right before it happens. Saul gets his sentence reduced, Jeff gets his sentence extended, and everyone's happy. And this may give Saul a chance to get out of prison one day, depending on how much his sentence is reduced or if it even is because of this. Yes, I know snitches are definitely not respected in prisons, but with all Saul has done for the criminal world, I doubt anyone is really gonna do much about that. He'd probably still be pretty liked and protected. And what the hell is Jeff gonna do to Saul anyways? Let's be real. And I just want to add this on. This isn't really a scenario, but Marion definitely got that $5 million reward money, right? We saw in a promo for Better Call Saul that the FBI is offering a $5 million reward for whoever can provide information leading to the arrest of Saul Goodman. And she literally got Saul Goodman caught when she called her life alert people. So she should at least get some of it, but I think she should get all of it. And I hope she enjoyed that money if she got it. She seemed like such a nice lady. And I feel bad for Marion because of Jeff. Maybe Marion can give some of that money to Jeff so we can get some good lawyers, so he can avoid going to the maximum security prison with Saul and having to escape. I would say I know a few good lawyers from Albuquerque, but one's in prison, one's buried under a laundromat, and one died in a house fire. There's always Kim though, of course. Imagine how funny it would be if Kim represents Jeff in trial. I also want to talk about the fact that Saul could have probably gotten Ed the Disappearer and maybe even Jesse caught. Now I say that very lightly because Ed the Disappearer is a very careful man. I saw an article that talked about how they definitely found the business card on Saul that helped him disappear. Now Ed the Disappearer definitely has contingency plans in place for this because he's Ed the Disappearer. He's not gonna get caught. But if they could have somehow linked him to Jesse and figured out Jesse was in Alaska, they could catch Jesse. Although it would be very difficult to link that vacuum card with anything that Ed had to do with Saul disappearing. Jimmy really could have screwed over Ed and maybe even Jesse there. Glad he decided not to do that and, you know, have some respect. Another person that I've seen literally no one talk about is Daniel Wormald. If you remember in the phone scene when Francesca's talking to Saul, she talks about how the laser tag business he had was seized. Because Daniel Wormald from Better Call Saul was the Danny in Breaking Bad that ran the laser tag business. So was Daniel Wormald put in prison because of his connection to Saul's money laundering business? Or was he considered not guilty because he wasn't technically the one laundering money? But wouldn't it be hilarious if Daniel Wormald made an appearance in the Better Call Saul finale, just in the background in the same prison as Saul is? They should have had him playing basketball or something. I'm sure that Danny could get off of those crimes. I don't think there's rock solid evidence that he was actually helping. And people also forget about Mr. Bill Oakley himself. What happens to him? after the end of Better Call Saul. Well, I hope that he continued his fantastic legal career. I hope that him being a part of Saul's counsel wouldn't make him look bad. Hell, maybe it even made him look good because Saul got his sentence down to 7 years. I'm not sure how that went for him, but I am hoping that Bill Oakley got some type of opportunity from that. Anyways, that's gonna be it. Hope y'all enjoyed the video, and if you like Better Call Saul, hit that subscribe button. Peace.
Because, I mean, look, it's wall-to-wall mayonnaise in here.